Good day, everyone, and welcome to today's lessons. Today, we will be talking about the 5 educational learning theories as it applies to educational technology. Before we do that, let's define some terms. Shall we begin?
Hello, I am your presenter. My name is Maita. Let's go on to definition of terms. What is learning? Learning is defined as a process that brings together personal and environmental experiences and influences for acquiring, enriching, or modifying one's knowledge, skills, values, attributes, behavior, and worldviews. Theories. Defined by Merriam-Webster's dictionary, theories are scientifically acceptable general principle or body of principles offered to explain phenomena. So what are learning theories? Learning theories are how students receive, process, and retain knowledge during learning. Learning style theories proposes that individuals learn in different ways. Now let's go on to the 5 learning theories related to education technology. The first one is behaviorism. Behaviorism is a theory where animals and human learning is focused on external observable behaviors. The idea of behaviorism is that learning consists of a change in behavior due to the acquisition, reinforcement, and application of associations between stimuli from the environment and observable response of the individual. Positive and negative reinforcements or reward and punishment are effective tools of learning for this theory. Classic conditioning, discovered by Russian physiologist Ivan Pavlov. Classic conditioning is a learning process that occurs through association between the environmental stimulus and a naturally occurring stimulus. Example: when you train a dog, you place a neutral stimulant, which is a whistle in this case, and an unconditioned stimulus, which would be dog food, together. Sometime later, the dog will anticipate dog food whenever he hears the whistle. This is a form of association. Now, what about behavioral operant conditioning? Now, these two fall under behaviorism, but behavioral operant conditioning is a little different. Sometimes called instrumental conditioning, it was first described by behaviorist B.F. Skinner. Through operant conditioning, an association is made between behavior and consequence. In short, a person learns there is consequence to his or her action. Now, in Skinner's operant chamber, a rat is placed in a chamber. If he pulls a lever, a reward of food is put in the chamber. Now this rat associates pulling the lever with food. Skinner's theory explained how we acquire the range of learned behaviors we exhibit every day. His theory was heavily influenced by the work of psychologist Edward Thorndike, who had proposed what he called the law of effect. The law of effect states that actions that are followed by desirable outcomes are more likely to be repeated, while those followed by undesirable outcomes are less likely to be repeated. For example, if your mom says the kettle is hot, you mustn't touch it, but the child still touched it and got burnt, this child is less likely to touch the kettle again because he or she knows that the kettle is hot and the desired outcome is less likely to be repeated because he got burned. Now let's talk about applicable educational technologies. As a teacher, you can show a video or material. and follow it up by a quiz. There are educational games like this, which I will show you in the next slide. You can also do an e-coin reward system. Now, this doesn't necessarily have to be a coin. It could be a point system, it could be a star system, something that they will accumulate to get rewards. Now, this is Prodigy Math Game. Prodigy Math Game is a type of educational game. There are some videos and materials, and there will be quizzes, and of course, the students can earn some points after this. Now, before we move on, let's have a little discussion. Teachers reward through grades. What are other rewards that aren't grades? How do you reinforce positive behavior when we are learning online? Number 2, Cognitivism. In Cognitivism, the focus is on the brain. Learning is explained as a recall of stored information. Cognitivism is a learning theory developed by Jean Piaget, in which a child developed cognitive pathways in understanding and physical response to experiences. In this theory, students learn most effectively through reading texts and lecture instructions. So here are applicable educational technology. You can do question and answer type of game or quizzes, you can do flashcards, and you can do sorting or puzzle games. Now here is an example, vocabularyspellingcity.com. So in this program, it's a K-12 supplementary literacy tool to help children with their spelling through this game. So it helps build vocabulary retention and reading comprehension through spelling and through a fun way. Again, before we move on, let's discuss. Is memorization and quizzes the best way to learn for students? Positive or negative? TikTok can be used in a Cognitivism approach. How can it be positive? Shall we move on to Constructivism? Constructivism, a derivative of Cognitivism. Constructivism focuses on the active role of learners in the process of learning. People use experiences and new information to construct their own meaning. There are two major branches of thoughts. Cognitive constructivism. This is the first one. Simply put, it is the individual's effort to acquire knowledge. Now, the second branch is social constructivism, where one negotiates learning through interaction with others. For applicable educational technologies, you can use a KWL chart. Do you guys know what that is? Knowing, want to learn, and what I learned chart. You could also do mind maps. And for social constructivism, there are Google Drives or Dropboxes, things that will help group works. Here is an example of a game. This is Game Star Mechanic. It's an interesting game where one plays, designs, and shares. So when they play, they accumulate points as they level up. And using these points or sprites, they can use it to buy things to design a game. And the game that they design, they can share for others to play. So this is a form of group work, and it's also a form of cognitive constructivism and social constructivism combined. Before we move on, let's discuss. Are group works the only way to enforce social constructivism? Humanism. Humanism. Emerging in the 1960s, humanism focused on human freedom, dignity, and potential. Humanism asserts that learning is a natural process that helps a person reach self-actualization. In humanism, learning is student-centered and personalized, and the educator's role is that of a facilitator. Here are applicable educational technologies. Anything that customizes learning for an individual. Choose your own adventure games, story-based educational games, apps and sites where a student can get a mentor. Here are some examples. This is Tinker, coding for kids. Mark Zuckerberg said in 15 years we'll be teaching programming just like reading and writing. So here it is, Tinker coding for kids. This one's called Civilizations AR. AR stands for Augmented Reality. A student can navigate places and scenarios where they can listen, x-ray, move around, spot something. Reality is augmented everywhere. Before we move on, let's discuss. As a teacher, we get 30 to 50 students per class. Is customized learning even possible? What do you think? Connectivism. Connectivism. This learning theory was developed only during the digital age. This new theory suggests that people no longer stop learning after formal education and continue to gain knowledge from other avenues such as job skills, networking, experiences, and access to information with new tools and technology. Here are applicable educational technologies. Of course, we have Google Classroom, which we are using. But did you know you can use Google Classroom for beyond what we are using here? You can use that for short courses. Speaking of short courses, here are some examples of short courses which you can take online. There is FutureLearn at futurelearn.net. And of course, there's Udemy and Teachables. Speaking of networking, have you heard of HeaART? It's by Joseph Gordon-Levitt, a collaborative media, which I will show you what it looks like in the next slide. Of course, there's also YouTube. YouTube as a way to learn and as a way to teach. This is HeaART. Everyone can post something or take something, modify it, and post it back there. There's a community around it. The media becomes a form of collaborative art. Before we move on, let's discuss how else can learning be collaborative? Please cite some examples. Are there programs or sites you want to use to make learning more interactive? Opposing viewpoints. Learning can be defined within the boundaries of the three broad theoretical approaches, which is Behaviorism, Cognitivism, and Constructivism. Why add humanism and Connectivism? Learning theories must allow learners to learn while having current data source handy at all times. It is helpful and at times necessary. Certain hubs of knowledge must be actualized by the learner. Networking, whether it is internet-based or otherwise, is more than a repository of knowledge. It is an experience, and experiences are what humanism is all about.
Before we go, let's recap what we have tackled so far.
Behaviorism. Learning is achieved through positive or negative reinforcement. Cognitivism. Learners focus on recall of knowledge. Constructivism. Learners uses experiences and new information to construct their own meaning. Humanism. Learning is student-centered and personalized. Connectivism. Learners don't stop learning. Acquiring knowledge is ongoing and with the use of technology and networking. I hope you guys understood our lessons today. And I'm glad we had this class today. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you next time.